Hey everybody, it's Gabriel with Automation Anywhere, and we are back. We're here live at Imagine 2023 here in Austin, Texas. And right now, got the opportunity to wrangle one of our good friends, customer partner, Mr. Michael Duke from Guidehouse. Also joining me is Stell Smith. And we're gonna talk a little bit about healthcare, RCM in particular. Okay. For those of you that don't know what RCM is, I had a cheat sheet. What did you tell them?
RCM, revenue cycle management. So basically medical billing, if you want to oversimplify it, but everything around healthcare, finance. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, if you've ever been to a doctor's office or a hospital, it's when you present, all the registration pathways, and a lot of coding and medical stuff in the middle, and then billing and collections on the back end. It's the easiest way to describe it.
But talk to me a little bit about where we are and what you're doing in particular with regards to intelligent automation. Where's your intelligent automation practice at right now, and what is it doing for you at Guidehouse?
So a 2-second step back is I started playing around with automation in the late 90s in healthcare, and it was really just scripting at that point, very low grade capabilities. And the things that you can do now actually replicate human activity, and we can do some things that create a real digital workforce. We can, on the appeals side of account management, we can take actions that actually resolve a claim as opposed to just moving data back and forth. So there's a lot of things there. There's decisions that can be built into the automation that really do allow it to be much more intelligent than historically possible. And then there's things beyond just RPA builds that allow us to do a lot of integration of different types of automations, conversational AI, other things that will leverage the information or data that we can capture with RPA, and then populate and do some of those, again, more human interactions. And it's becoming a really interesting field.
To the layperson, again, I was just complaining about going to the doctor and whatnot. What does that impact to me? Like, I might not see that this is happening. I might not see the great work that you're doing. But what is that impact ultimately going to be like for me, whether I know it or not, as well as the provider?
There's a lot of things now where we can leverage. If you're calling in for a schedule, I can actually use RPA and some other automation techniques where I don't have to sit on hold. I'm not waiting for an agent to pick up, and I can make my schedule, I can pick my times, and I can do all that without anybody ever being involved. So it's really making the patient experience much better.
And I say that's a change, right? Even from 5 years ago, right? The reality to gather information. Healthcare insurance has gotten much more complex, and the rules and requirements of what type of insurance I have. How do I get the right information to have a given procedure done? A lot of times I'd have to talk to a person, and it would take weeks and weeks to do that. You guys have been able to leverage a lot of interesting technologies to help shorten that process and make it a lot more complete in a lot shorter time.
You've been doing this for what, 30 years? Something
32,
like that?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you've seen a lot of change, you've seen a lot of progress. There's other things like you mentioned, like going paperless, that still haven't happened. But you mentioned a moment ago, some of these things that weren't possible before that are now with intelligent automation. There's even more potentially possible with generative AI and intelligent automation, right? So where you guys, what are you looking at right now? Have you deployed anything?
We're looking at it from a appeal standpoint again. So one of the biggest denial categories is medical necessity. And we're trying to figure out how do we use Gen AI to research charts, research the things that have happened in the past that have produced a positive outcome, which is claim payment, and using Gen AI to do that, and really formulate the response to the payer, where right now that takes a highly trained clinician to do that work, and they're just not available. And so we're trying to use that technology to build that profile so that a nurse or a physician can review it and approve it.
Yeah. And have a human in the loop kind of situation, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting to use generative AI specifically for that, and then being able to look at, particularly as hospitals and health systems attach large language models to their own data, being able to look at differential payments and looking and say, hey, how do you do this? How do you write an appeal letter for Cigna versus Aetna versus Blue Cross? That's really interesting, and that wasn't possible even a couple of years ago.
Not just not possible to write the letter, but then to be able to accumulate all that data, see what's successful in a past case for a similar procedure, for that similar service, all those things, and then aggregate that data using Gen AI to formulate a proper response that we think will have a high probability of success. So,
and generative AI is great at synthesizing complex data and data from multiple places. So getting that data, the payment data, the history, and applying it moving forward is something that's very, very interesting.
And you can build upon itself from there. So you've created this model where, from a validation perspective, you're like, this is what success looks like. We've processed all of these historical cases, right? Once we've established that this is probably going to be successful, maybe send it to an automation co-pilot, have a human review it, say yes. From there, leverage generative AI again, potentially create a communication that has sort of the history to it and all that, because all that takes time. I can imagine that the research in all of that is, forget about it, right? But even taking the time to like say, okay, I got the data, now I got to get to that point in my day where I get to email them, because even I'm sure many of our friends that are watching, you do the research, you do the thing, you accomplish the task, and then you've got to send it to somebody, and you're like, well, I don't have time to do that right now, I'll get to it later. So just the idea of sending an email or whatever becomes its own thing, right? I mean, that's a real world thing, right?
Yeah, even the digital follow-up stuff that we're doing now, it's not using a lot of Gen AI, but we want to take that same concept and can I present information when I do need to have a human resource do the work? Can I take some of that same concept and push it to them in the process of their communication with the payer or whatever it might be, that they've now been given a kind of script, if you will, of success so that they can push that forward. So there's a lot of use cases for it.
Yeah. So you mentioned, being able to automate more, but we're not talking about in order to replace people. We're talking about doing this because the people aren't there to be able to do it. Right? There's a significant workforce shortage in the healthcare industry, is there not?
Well, it's not, in my opinion, you tell me, I'm curious what you think, it's not just workforce, it's highly educated and skilled workforce. That's really the problem, is getting people with skills.
But it really is both. So the administrative tasks, there's various studies out there, but there's somewhere in the 15 to 25% shortage for those type activities. But then you get into clinicians, there's a big shortage for physicians, there's a big shortage for nurses. Well, how do we replace those in any of the tasks that we're talking about? We have to use something with automation and Gen AI and conversational AI and all those things to kind of replace as much as we can of that human workforce that, you're exactly right, doesn't want to come back to work or isn't available to us like they used to be.
And that work right now is following on the folks that are there. And so they have, an incredible burden on them. So effectively, you're taking the load off of those that are there that are stretched thin so that they can provide that time with a patient. Second show since sort of post-COVID. It's fun to be back at an Imagine where you've got 1,000+ people, roaming the halls, learning, sharing. How's the experience been so far for you?
Fantastic. You talk about automation where we're kind of taking the person out of the mix, but there's nothing like human interaction, so it's been really good. I've enjoyed it.
Well, keep up the great work and keep on innovating.